51 episodes, Renu. Wowee. Just every time I'm just like, whoa, wowee. Wowee, the number, it gets bigger. It's, like time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Adcast, a podcast for the study of modern visual culture. I'm your endlessly tired and functionally immortal yokai boya, Renu.
And I'm your goddess of wisdom that looks 12, Soup.
This week, AT stands for Absolute Territory because we'll be talking about the winter 2020 anime season. But
nice.
Before we get into it, what have you been up to?
That's a very good question. To which I feel like I don't really have a good answer, weirdly enough.
I'm kind of on the same page.
I mean, it just kind of feels like I've been all over the place, weirdly enough. It's just something about, like, I don't know, everything is a little bit scattered. My brain is all over the place. I think I've been doing stuff, maybe, but it's pretty unclear. I might have just been in kind of like a haze. Like we recorded like functionally 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I could not tell you exactly what took place in that 2 to 3 week period. It kind of feels like that time wasn't real to me a little bit. I don't know. Yeah. At the very least, what was real was, watching anime. I feel like I remember that part.
Anime is very real.
Yeah, anime is the realest that you get. Yeah, no, I really have not been up to that much now that I think about it. I'll probably remember something after the podcast, of course. But yeah, nothing super exciting on my end. How about you?
I hate to say that it's pretty similar for me. Mostly been doing work stuff because we had a deadline just a couple days ago, and so animation deadlines mean a lot of overtime hours sometimes.
Oh, the worst.
Yeah, it wasn't a good time, but thankfully I have a couple days reprieve before we jump into our new project, which also has a short deadline, which sucks.
Yikes.
But yeah, that's the life, man. That good life.
Yeah, that good life of doing that.
Other than that, though, I've been busy with planning for a Japan trip in the summer. So
a summer Japan trip. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
I feel like we should go one time as like the podcast unit.
Oh my god, that would be so awesome.
Yeah, if I had any amount of money, maybe let's look towards next year.
Oh. Ooh.
Yeah. Let's look towards next year. Yeah.
Okay.
If I had any amount of money at all, that would be super fun.
Yeah, totally.
I don't remember if I've ever talked about like the specifics of when I went to Japan, because I don't actually remember the strict chronological order of my life at this point, and things have kind of become tethered from that. So it would be hard for me to place, but I'm sure I've talked about it on the podcast. I went to Japan for a couple of days, but that's the only time I've ever been, and I would love to go back because I never went to Tokyo. I just went to the sort of like the Kansai area.
Oh, interesting. That so last during our first Japan trip, or first and only one, we went to Tokyo almost exclusively. Like we went to Hakone for a bit.
Really? Okay.
But we mostly only stayed in Tokyo, and this time we're going to like the Kansai area. So we're going to Osaka, Kyoto, and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's such different trips that you really just have to do that. Yeah. Yeah. When I went with my family, we only spent like 3 or 4 days there, which is not a ton of time. But we traveled around Kyoto, Osaka, and Kobe.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. We got to visit the really famous temple that's in all the anime that all the like Tokyo kids take school trips to.
Yeah.
So very exciting, but I would love to go like not with my family, you know what I mean?
I completely understand.
Yeah. So I don't know. Let's look to that. Because that sounds really exciting. We might even put together some bonus content for the podcast. Yeah, cool. But that sounds really exciting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and then I'll talk about the podcast whenever it happens.
Heck yeah! How long are you gonna be in Japan?
A week.
Ooh, that's pretty good.
A whole week.
I will say I'm pretty jealous. I have some friends that spent an entire month in Japan.
Oh my god, I want it.
They were just kind of bouncing around hostels and stuff. It does sound a little stressful to me, as somebody who likes to stay at home and not move, like a snail. But at the same time, there's something kind of fun about that. Like the 2 weeks I spent in Europe was like super fun.
Yeah, it's super fun. And you kind of get into a routine of, okay, what am I going to do today? And then you fill out your whole day with stuff. And then you come back home exhausted and you sleep. Yeah, and you have a really good sleep because you were exhausted. And then you wake up in the morning and do it all over again.
Yeah. Oh, I did remember actually. I did a streamed tabletop game recently. My friend Mads is a designer, and so we were playtesting the game on stream. It's a game called Heist, which is technically derivative of a different system, but it has been pared down to be very accessible, and it is about heist movies, like reenacting like a heist movie. And
that's cool.
Yeah, I'm never allowed to be on shows. Like you shouldn't invite me to things like that because I will do my best to kind of throw things off the rails as often as possible. I invented a very bleak and realistic dystopian future, which I will not spoil, but it was really fun, and I'm glad. That was a good experience. I got to play a character named Fugu Tachibana.
Oh my god.
And I will not explain any more than that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'll leave a link to it, so if you're inclined to watch it and stare at my face for like 2 or 3 hours, like, there you go.
Ooh, woo, 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 soupy face.
Ooh, woo, woo, woo. Yeah, I remember that, like, that was it, I think. That, like, I remember there was one thing I definitely wanted to mention. And I believe that was it.
You did it.
I did it. It was on the ActualPlay Twitch channel. So yeah. Yeah. That was super fun. Have you been up to anything else?
That's mostly it. It's been a pretty not super eventful couple weeks.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, to be fair, like it has been a criminally long time since we've been able to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And it's only getting harder to schedule.
It's getting longer. The hiatus.
Yeah. But we're busy people. It happens.
It happens.
And the like Super Bowl and stuff, so I guess people are busy because they want to watch sports.
Whatever.
I guess. But yeah. All right. I don't know. Do you want to talk about anime now?
Anime.
Let's get it. Okay. Welcome to the winter 2020 season. We will be talking about all the things that we watched, except for Dorohedoro, because we didn't watch it because it's in Netflix jail. So look forward to that in if we ever mention it at all, it's probably going to be in fucking August of this year. At this fucking rate. Like, it's ridiculous. Anyway, me sort of hammering the nail of like ever preventing any kind of Netflix deal aside, we did watch a decent amount of stuff.
We did.
We sampled around, and we have some feelings about some things, and less feelings about other things, weirdly.
Yeah, some of them were like, eh, and some of them were like, hey, but, you know, that's how it is.
Yeah. So the first one that we'll talk about is Magia record, Mahou Shoujo Madoka Magica Gaiden, which is a like Madoka side story. It's I don't actually know who it's written by, but it's basically the mobile game, and I think it adapts the story of the mobile game.
Yeah, it's not as like bad as like what you would expect of like there's a huge difference between the Fate series and then the Fate spin-offs, right? So it's not quite as jarring as that. Like, they definitely try and keep the entire mood, aesthetic, everything of the original series. I just don't know how I feel about it yet.
I know what you mean, and I'm pretty much in the same boat, all things considered. Like, I am interested because it does seem that they've kept all of the production and the tone and the aesthetics of the show the same. But obviously it's a different story. Now, I am curious because I don't know how much stock I would ever put into a mobile game story, except for Grand Blue Fantasy, but that's kind of a different case. And yeah, it does concern me somewhat, right? Like, I just can't tell from the first episode, like, because it's basically like, well, it looks and it feels like Madoka, so I liked Madoka, right?
Yeah, apparently, according to Wikipedia, the anime is written by Gaiden Inukuri, who they're responsible for the witch designs and animations.
Interesting. Okay. Oh yeah, the like animation troupe.
Yeah. So I guess they helped write it in cooperation with Elsewhere.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting.
I don't know. I guess, like, if you like Madoka, here is more of it, but revolving around different people and potentially different lore. Like, minor spoils for the first episode, but there is a tiny Kyubey.
Yeah, there's a little baby Kyubey. little baby Kyubey.
Yeah. And there's it's basically about this city called Kamihama City, where these girls are the magical girls are making their way to the city because they have heard a rumor that you can that magical girls can be saved there. And these at least one of the girls has been having nightmares about, you know, some not so great things happening. So
Kamihama City isn't the city where Madoka takes place, though, is it?
No, I don't remember.
I will have to look this up.
No,
shit, I wish I knew.
Their city is called Mitakihara.
Oh, Mitakihara. Okay, I see. It's different. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it is. I don't know. As far as a like side story goes, judging from only the first episode, mind you, because we actually haven't watched past it really. I don't think. Maybe we watched two. I don't actually remember. But I don't know. I want to be optimistic about it, but also like part of me is like, did I really like need more Madoka? Like, I know I wanted it, but do I like need it?
Yeah.
And like, what purpose is the side story going to serve, I guess?
Right. Yeah. That's kind of how I am too. It's very uncertain, like how much, despite how much I liked the original series and I still like it, I don't know how much I would want this as opposed to like another Madoka movie.
I think that's true. To be fair, it seems as though like I don't know. It does kind of seem like the news about the Madoka movie dropped off for a couple of years and it just hasn't really been picked up.
Right. And I understand if they're working on it in the meantime and they're like, well, our mobile game is doing well. Why don't we make an anime off of that to kind of help promote that? And then it'll also help fund the movie, whatever we're doing with that, like that kind of stuff. I understand that. It just feels like, for example, we're waiting on the fourth Evangelion movie, and then they come out with a little side anime that has nothing to do with, or at least is about a completely different cast than our original pilots. And it's like, all right, I don't know how much I care about this though, even though I love Ava.
Yeah, I mean, it is asking a lot to get invested in a new cast of characters, obviously. Especially when you have sort of it's kind of like it's like the problem with going between like JoJo parts where you're like, you've gotten so invested in these characters, which this is less of a problem, honestly, if you binge it, and more of a problem if you watch it like week to week. Like, imagine keeping up with the manga of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and like suddenly, you know, part 3 ends and you're like, where the fuck am I? Right? It's asking a lot, especially because these characters have been so central to the story and the mythos of Madoka since, you know, it came out in 2011.
Right,
that was
for years.
9 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, the question does obviously stand. Like, do we need more Madoka? I mean, I guess it doesn't hurt to have a side story. But what is my interest in that? I guess like I'm not sure what I want to get out of this.
Yeah, I'm the same way because
I don't know what to expect of it.
Right, and I like the fact that the Madoka world, it has quite a bit of mystery to it, and it is somewhat interesting that they're kind of expanding on the lore a bit so that you can learn about, you know, a city other than Mitakihara. Because it is, like, as we mentioned during our whole episode about Madoka, it's a really isolated location. And so getting to learn about another location is interesting, and you get to learn about a different set of magical girls and maybe a little bit more about the magical girl lore and what these other conflicts are kind of like, you know, how they're resolving. But yeah, I'm not sure how much I want to watch more of this, even though it's not bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like you got your pink-haired magical girl main character. She has a like a ranged weapon, and she doesn't remember what her like deal is or why she's a magical girl. And Kyubi
That's right. She doesn't remember what her wish is.
Yeah. So I'm obviously curious about the kind of conceit of the story, and why they're like, magical girls could be saved if they go to Kamihama City.
Yeah, and then she has her missing sister, whatever. Like,
right, yeah.
There's a mystery going on, and I'm sure that it will come around to an interesting conclusion, as Madoka tends to do.
I think, yeah, it depends on how they're going to process that arc, like how they're gonna depict that story, because it is an interesting premise. I'm just, like, I'll probably watch a couple more episodes of it, and maybe I'll bounce off of it. Maybe I'll keep watching. Like, I don't know. I will say it is funny that I can see the like kind of descending from a game aspect of it, where it's just like, oh, this is like the city where like witches are super powerful. Like, oh yeah, because you need to roll a gacha to get your cool magical girls to like fight the witches. It's like it's just a very video game conceit, right? Where it's just like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I am interested in seeing how they'll tie in the designs of these characters in like, I'm sure that they made it very purposeful in terms of she's not just a Madoka lookalike or whatever like that.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's got to be something about the fact that she's a pink-haired Madoka
yeah, and then
character.
her best friend is a freaking Homura-ish, like Homura palette. You know, she's dark purple and whatnot.
Yeah.
They've got a couple of other girls that look like the other girls, so...
I think my biggest fear for it really is, like, even if it's not, like, bad, if it's not great, it'll just kind of make me wish I had been watching Madoka instead. Because I do see... I see the, like, threads of the main series in it, where, you know, you've got these girls, and one of them doesn't remember what the fuck her wish is because she's special, but the other one is just like, yeah, I did dumb shit, right? Like, my wish was stupid, and I kind of wish, like, I hadn't done that and sold my immortal soul to a extra planar being so that I could, I don't know, go on a date. But to be fair, like, that to me is kind of like the core, like, you know, ethos of Madoka, where it is about how we expect children who have very little experience in their lives and very little, like, very narrow perspectives to make really important, you know, life-changing, life-directing decisions without, like, considering what that's kind of doing, right? And it's just like, oh, you're like 18 now, you have to like choose what you want to study in college, which will ostensibly affect you for the rest of your life, which is like, whoa, heavy, dude, you know?
Yeah,
like,
I do like that they address the conceit really early on, because it's like, yeah, we know that you've already watched Madoka, so we're gonna address this here and now, and then we'll be able to move on from there.
They do. They do get to take some shortcuts because they just kind of presume that you've already seen Madoka, which I think is fine. Like, I think that it's okay to just have, you know, this girl with the buns look like she's basically like if Sayaka didn't just go like full tilt, you know, self-destruction mode. Yeah, I do wonder about if that's like a trend that will continue throughout the rest of the show, because, you know, it is important that moments like that are treated with some amount of levity, because it's what gives those moments like them their kind of emotional impact. But it's interesting to me that is like, I like that, you know, she's not Sayaka 2. Right? Like, I like that her deal isn't like, oh, I loved this boy and I wanted him so bad, but he spurned me and he doesn't appreciate what I do because I've never told him, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? I'm completely okay with it not being like, I'm Sayaka 2. And her deal is different. It's like, I regret becoming a magic girl, not enough to become like a witch about it, but just, this sucks. Like, I'm basically contracted into labor forever because I made a dumb wish when I was like 16 or whatever. Also, I will say this, it's pretty clear that the character designer is, I think, a different person, or at the very least the same person, and has evolved their art style somewhat. Like, they don't look quite as weird as the original Madoka designs look. It's like they took that spirit and made it a little bit like easier to like look at. Which isn't to say
the original Madoka design.
It isn't to say that they're bad. It's just that, like, if you kind of look closely, you're just like, oh my god, their eyes are huge. Their faces are so round.
What I in terms of design, I like the Madoka outfits more
the outfits are always good,
more than in this one. Like this one,
yes,
like
I
they're
definitely
fine,
don't like
but
the
I like
outfits
the
as
old ones
much.
better, or like the original cast better. But in terms of art style, it looks like it's a little less. I almost want to say it's a little more generic than the original. It
is entirely possible. Like it's a very like weirdly unique art style for various reasons. But obviously, like, you know, the witch stuff is kept the same. The general feel of it is, I would say, like a little lighter, like more of a mystery than a you know, kind of despair simulator that Madoka was.
But then again, we are only in the first episode.
Right,
so.
we're only in the first episode. Madoka wasn't quite like that in the first episode either. But at the same time, it is interesting to think about the weight of the story in comparison to the aesthetics of the production, because it is produced by, you know, it's an anime by Shaft, right? It's like, because Shaft is the studio that did the original Madoka, it looks and feels exactly the same as original Madoka. The question is, will that suit the story? Is the story going to have the same levity as Madoka? Is Madoka just known as a series where like young children suffer forever or whatever, right? Which I'm interested in exploring in terms of like where to go with that. I haven't heard anybody talking about it really. Like, I like have not seen anybody talk about this anime. Aside from like, you know, just like, oh yeah, it's like the mobile game one. I have read some of the like Madoka side mangas, which are interesting. They are actually pretty good, because the thing about Madoka that's kind of nice is that there's this conceit of like the time loop, right? And so things play out a little bit differently every time. So there's like one of the best ones is a side manga about Kyoko and Mami, and it's a timeline where they get really close with each other. And it's interesting because you get to see different facets of their personality, and the way that they interact with each other. But I don't know. I just need to know what happens, you know? Like I'm just intensely curious about it. Like I have to know.
Okay, so apparently, according to my anime list, the character design is by Taniguchi Junichiro, and he was also the chief animation director, and he was the chief animation director for the original series, but he wasn't the character designer.
The character designer, right? Yeah. Interesting.
But his other works include character design for Gekkan Shoujo Nozaki-kun. He was the chief animation director of one of the episodes of Go Sick, which that also has a similar art style-ish. He also did Okiku Furikabute, which is a baseball anime that I love. He did Prison School, character design, and chief animation director.
Interesting.
And yeah, that's...
Okay, fair enough. So looking towards the future for that one. Like, I don't even know if I necessarily want to even watch it week to week. I might just binge it afterwards.
Yeah,
like, I don't know.
I guess we'll see like how much time we have and all that, but
it's pretty low on the priority list.
Yeah.
TBQH.
Yeah, if I suddenly hear things about like, oh my god, you gotta watch it, blah 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 blah, things happened in episode 3 again, you know, maybe then.
So next is Toilet Bound Hanako-kun, which is it's basically a play on Hanako-san, which is an urban ritual, like an urban myth. A what? Wait, what? What am I saying? What is the word for this? Like an urban myth?
Yeah, it's an urban myth.
Why did that not like
You okay?
register in my mind? I don't know. It didn't sound right for a second. That was very strange. Yeah, just like an urban legend. An urban legend.
Fuck! You got me confused.
Oh, that was
like,
it.
Yeah, it's an urban myth.
God damn it. I knew it didn't sound right. Okay. It's about an urban legend, kind of ghost story / like 7 wonders of the school. It's pretty much the Japanese version of Bloody Mary. You know, you like turn off the lights and you just like say it in the mirror. But instead what you're supposed to do is you go to the 3rd floor of a school and you go to the bathroom and the girls' bathroom, and then you go to the 3rd stall and you go knock, 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 and you're like, Hanako-san, Hanako-san, Hanako-san. And that summons a ghost that, like, I don't know, died on the toilet. I guess it's like a Moaning Myrtle kind of thing. And basically the conceit of this show is, I believe it's based on a manga, that Hanako-san is actually a boy named Hanako-kun, and he's a little ghosty boy, and the main character gets into all kinds of hijinks because she becomes contractually bound to help him in the 1st episode for various reasons, because, you know, of course. I kind of wish we had watched one more episode of this before recording, because the 1st episode, just so much fucking stuff happens, and none of it is, like, I think representative of the actual cadence of the show.
Yeah, it's true.
Because it's just the setup episode where it's like, oh, this is the like catalyzing event that starts the event of the series. Like, I don't know what it's gonna be like, but it is interesting. I think I like the art style of it. It's very
I
like
love
unique.
the art style. It's crazy.
But if I also had to describe it, there's something a little like horny about the art style. Like, every time I look at the design for the for Hanako-kun, I'm just like, this boy is like 10 years old, but there's some horny energy about him. Do you know? Like there are certain I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but there are certain people that have like certain art styles where like you can immediately tell that they're kind of like a little kinky. Do you know?
All right, Soupy.
And trust me.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, there's just like a weird horny energy. I promise. Like, have you seen, like, you saw the episode, like, you saw the shot where he's like putting the like mermaid scale on his tongue. It's so fucking horny.
That shot was weird. There are certain decisions in this series, I guess, that he almost hits on her, and then he's like, "Ha, just kidding," like that kind of thing. So yeah. I don't know.
I don't know if it helps that Hanako-kun is also voiced by Megumi Ogata.
Yeah.
So it's like
it sounds
like you never really notice it when she's like voicing Shinji, but like you know, because her voice is so like husky, it's like a little sultry, you know.
Yes, it is.
Like for sure, there's definitely an element of like it's a little sultry, and that carries over in a character like Hanako-kun way more than it has ever done for Shinji.
I think she emphasized it for him.
I think so too. I think he's supposed to be a little horny.
All right, well, you know, he's a teenage boy who might like this girl. Who knows?
Who knows? I don't know. I'm interested in how the like cadence of the show itself plays out, because the 1st episode, like, you know, like we mentioned, is just a setup episode. She gets into some hijinks. She wants to confess to a boy. She does not listen to his advice and swallows a mermaid scale and becomes a fish. And he's like, okay, well, that sucks. I will also swallow the scale and lessen the burden on you, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. Which is it's an interesting premise, but it's clear that it's probably going to become just kind of like a I don't want to say slice of life, but it's more like an episodic, like, oh, look, this is the hijink of the week sort of thing, is what it feels like to me.
Yeah, apparently the manga is ongoing and it's 12 volumes so far.
That's quite a lot of volumes. Yeah,
that's a lot.
I bet there are some meteor arcs in there. It seems primed towards it. Like, the writing is a little bit. There's something about it that's like a little bit like. It appeals to me, I guess I would say. Like, something about it catches my attention. I think because in a lot of ways it The aesthetic of it is good. Like the art style is really, really unique and cool. And it, to me, gives me very aesthetically like very Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei vibes. I definitely mentioned that when we were watching it. And I love Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei, so I'm intrigued. Oh, wasn't the opening super horny? Isn't that why I felt like that way?
I don't remember the.
Anyway, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's pretty good.
I think it's fun. At the very least, I think it's worth checking out just to take a peek at the art style. And
yeah, very unique.
Yeah. Also, peep at Megumi Ogata because I love her.
She's the best.
So, yeah, I think it's worth an episode to see if you'll like it. Maybe 2 episodes so you can get a sense for the pacing that isn't like all all set up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Megumi Ogata is also great because she's just like the coolest voice actor. Like if you've ever seen a picture of her, she just looks really cool.
She looks like a frigging anime character, like a really cool anime character.
Definitely one of the most like unique voices. But yeah, let's talk about Science Fell in Love. So I tried to prove it, probably pretty briefly. Like, I think it's a funny one. I actually legitimately thought it was pretty funny.
No, it is legitimately funny. I think the only things that take us out of it, which are, you know, it's somewhat relevant,
this
but
might
not
be personal for you.
Yeah, is the fact that there's so much of it that because it's okay. So the conceit is that it's about these 2 grad school researchers who fall in love and they work in the same lab, and one of the girls very clearly likes the guy, and he's like, OMG, how do you know that you're in love, though? We have to quantify this and and research it. And as someone who once went to grad school and was in a science program and worked in a lab, there's quite a bit in here that I'm like, okay, that's real. And there's other parts where I'm like, you're a researcher. That's not how you would think about this. This is not a scientific approach.
No,
this is not the scientific method.
It's the perception of a scientific approach.
Yeah.
I will say this though. I think that the ridiculousness of those characters is tempered somewhat by the fact that every other character seems both A, normal, and B, aware that they're really fucking weirdos about this.
Yes, I do like that the other characters are like, okay, but these 2 are freaking bizarre, and we're a little more representative of how an actual grad school lab would be.
I like the character who doesn't like show up in the first episode, but she's in the background of every shot, and she just wakes up at night like, oh crap, because she's like clearly very hungover. Like, oh yeah, that's what grad school actually looks like.
Yeah. It's actually that, or she has actually been asleep because she's been working without sleep for like a week.
Yeah. So like actually grad school.
Yeah, so actual grad school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny though, actually. The writing is pretty funny. I was surprised because I thought it would be a little over the top. And it is, but in a way that it kind of leans into it. I saw someone describe it like it's like Kaguya-sama without the narration.
Yes. I would tend to agree, yeah, because the dynamic is similar where these 2 are obviously digging each other, but like extraordinary, like they just overthink things way too much.
They're just very obstinate about it.
Yeah.
I think it's cute. Like if you know, like it's definitely worth a watch.
Kaguya-sama, then you might like this.
If you like Kaguya-sama, or if you just want like just a comedy show. Like we are as you and I specifically are like really biased towards like shows that have like really hard hitting emotional cores. So it's sometimes really hard for us to engage with like comedy shows or like really lighthearted, like non-consequential anime, unless it's like actually like gut buster hilarious. Like and Kaguya-sama was in a lot of ways that for us, and like Hina Matsuri was like that for us.
Oh my god, yeah.
That show is so funny. But like on the whole, weirdly, because like I find myself like somebody who likes, you know, comedy material. I feel like I just don't watch a ton of comedy anime. And even when I don't know, it seems like the kind of thing that's like hard to keep up with week to week, because I'm not like, it's like the opposite of a show that like utilizes the format of like, oh, you watch one episode a week, right? It's literally just all of these episodes are more or less the same premise. They're pretty cookie cutter, like they have different variations, but you know, one episode will not leave you cliffhangered for another episode. And so you can kind of just take it at your own pace, which is to say, you know, you could watch them all at once, or you could space them out how you like.
Right.
I don't think there's any real compulsion to watch it week to week like some other shows. Like, I think some shows are legitimately interesting to watch week to week because they leave room for the episode to breathe and talk about the episode and like digest it, which is I think important for shows, especially like really heavy shows. This is not that, right?
Yeah, opposite.
So yeah, definitely like if you like lighthearted sort of comedy stuff, this is really good.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Let's talk about It Invaded, which is a show that is about a detective guy. Except, you know what it's like? This is basically like, it's a little bit like it's a little bit like Babylon. The good parts of Babylon, at the very least. From the first, like, couple episodes that we've watched that we can put together. Yeah. It feels like a little bit of the good parts of Babylon. It feels a little psychopathy. And it feels like a little bit, there was a mystery show that came out like pretty recently, like a good one, but I don't remember what it is. So maybe it wasn't that good to begin with. But it feels like it. You know, there's an aspect of mystery to it. It's like a little Danganronpa-y, or maybe like 999 is like a more like apt comparison.
Yeah, it's not written by the guy who did Babylon and whatnot. So
no. Okay, this is very important, right? So it's not written by the Cube guy. It is instead created, written, and I think created, but it's written and directed by the person who did Recreators, which, while it had some major pacing issues, was overall like definitely one of the sleeper hits of that season, and one I think doesn't really get enough like recognition. Like, Recreators was good to me.
It was awesome,
and I'm interested in the premise of it because it's essentially like, well, I'm not like 100% clear on the mechanics of it. They're like, we're gonna take the killing intent, like it's like id particles that are left behind at a crime scene, and we're gonna analyze the id particles and recreate the world of the id to track down the criminal, like a serial killer. And I will say there is something legitimately interesting about it because it allows for the show to and this is not necessarily the way it has gone 100%, but it allows the show to explore things like more abstracted and more symbolically than a straight, you know, detective mystery show.
Yes.
It has kind of mixed the two in a sense, right? Like there's a little bit of like Phoenix Wright, like, you know, point and click adventure, put together the clues, like all you got to do is adjust things to be correct, and there's a little bit of like, oh, this is like a little bit like abstract, right?
Yes.
It plays with a lot of very interesting ideas, even if you have to get over the initial like weirdness of the conceit where it's just like the id particles. Okay.
It's apparently it's not written and directed by the same dude. The director is the guy who did Recreators.
Interesting.
But It's written by it's based on a manga, so it's written by the manga artist. Otaro Magio. Ooh, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm very curious about it.
Otaro Maijo, excuse me.
Which, is a good sign, I would say.
Yeah,
it's
I'm
interesting.
really interested in it, and it looks neat.
It does look neat.
Style.
It started pretty well, I would say. It wasn't like an immediately like I'm so enraptured, but it was like this was like, decently well put together. Like it felt solidly like good,
Yeah.
Like it was not
I would
great,
say so.
but solidly good.
I would be interested in watching more just to learn a bit more about what's happening. It feels a little bit Assassin's Creed-y too.
Oh, you're right, it does. Yeah. Totally, for sure.
Yeah.
There's definitely that part of it.
So if you're down for like a mystery thriller, this could be your jam. It's like instead of going back into the land of assassinos, you're solving a murder mystery. Several murder mysteries.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Now, there was definitely where we left off felt very, very reminiscent of Babylon, which is why we were a little worried. But I'm willing to trust this show because it's not written by the Cube guy. And it's, to be fair, it has not like approached like the same level of like we're gonna ask a philosophical question, right? It's more just like this is like kind of like a thriller with a weird premise, right? Yeah. It feels a lot more straightforward.
We're
which
so
is
scarred, dude.
Which is good. I know, we're so afraid. I mean, that's what the fucking cube like emoji in our server is for.
The cube effect.
Yeah, dude. It's for that cube.
Yeah, I would recommend it if that's the kind of genre or thing that you're looking for.
Yeah, it was solidly good. It was solidly good. I would definitely recommend at least checking out like an episode or two. Mm-hmm. So, for whatever reason, in the year of our goddamn Lord 2020, we got an Orphen remake, like the manga Orphen, like the 90s anime Orphen remake, and holy crap. Sometimes you forget that the 90s was not just like Cowboy Bebop and like Slayers. Sometimes you remember, like things were really weird. So
it's
Orphen,
so 90s.
or Sorcerous Stabber Orphen, which is the like official translation of it, which is hilarious, is about a sorcerer. He does magic. He went to sorcery school, and then his sister did some fucked up shit with the sword and got turned into a dragon. And now he's like, damn it, I gotta turn my sister back from a dragon to a human, even though all the magic cops want to kill her because she's a fucking dragon. Something about the conceit of this show infuriates me a little bit. It's like, why was she doing that in the first place? What was she doing?
She got herself into this mess.
Right? I mean, yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure how to feel about it because, like, the sensibilities of it are so 90s that I'm not really sure how much I want to keep watching it. I mean, I can tell you, actually, I don't want to keep watching it.
I'm kind of on the same page, even though I love a lot of stuff that came out during the 90s, and protagonist with red headband, classic of that time.
Right, he looks like a Beyblade character.
So apparently it was for the series' 25th anniversary.
Holy crap, this thing is old.
Yeah. it's the problem is that we also had another 90s readaptation slash
we had a couple, and they're all better.
Fruits Basket, you know, and stuff like that. And so you compare like how they treated Fruits Basket with this, and it's like, I mean, yeah, the genres and everything about the stories are completely different, and yet I feel like the staff for Fruits Basket handled it better, or else the conceit of Fruits Basket, even though it was so bizarre, it's a little easier to palate than
honestly, I just think that like the source material just was a little bit meh. I mean, it was very of its time. We'll give it the credit of it was the 90s. It's an incredibly 90s piece. And if you're into that, I think you will enjoy it, aside from the fact that they have decided to update the art style, which comes with the unfortunate drawback of suddenly you have 90s art, like 90s design sensibilities, with too modern of an art style that removes the kind of uniqueness of the 90s art style in the modern age. So suddenly you have a bunch of people wearing like modern day clothing with like jean jackets and headbands, except the character faces don't look like they're from it looks like they're cosplaying 90s characters. You know what I mean?
I understand why they would want to modernize it, but I almost wish that they hadn't, that they had kept it kind of like old school looking, because then it would feel like like the time period that it was made in, right? And
I think so. I think so too. Like, and I think that there's precedent for that being well received as well. You know, with shows like Megalobox, which is
that's exactly like Megalobox. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Essentially, like a remake of Ashita no Joe, which is a really old piece, and like, sure, it looks like a modern anime, quote unquote, because the design sensibilities and the artistic style of it is very like 90s 2000s. Like, it looks like Cowboy Bebop, and the thing about it is that it fits the vibe of it better, and I think once you take it out of that time period with the art style, it kind of ruins the aesthetic of the whole thing. It makes it a lot harder to watch, I think. Because if it looked like it was a show from the 90s, I don't think even have that many issues with it necessarily. I would just be like, okay, yeah, cool, 90s.
This is how anime looks.
Cool.
Right. I completely agree, and I think making it more modern works for a series like Fruits Basket, but not necessarily for this. It just
I think so too. Yeah. I mean, it's like Fruits Basket at least is about like high schoolers, and high schoolers don't really change, and they kept enough of the original art style that it looked consistent. Whereas with Orphen, it just feels like it has become, you know what they've done? They took a show that was like a product of its time, probably pretty, like, you know, not to be mean, but like probably pretty generic when it came out, and have made it generic for the new era. So it's like
they did.
Like, you know, you took the one aspect of it that might be unique nowadays, and you squandered it.
It would be. I almost wish that rather than Orphen, even though I have no hatred for Orphen, I think it was wildly popular back then too. Another series that was around the same-ish time that I was really into was Chrono Crusade, and I feel like even that would handle a more modern art style better than Orphen for some reason. Like, and that also had a red headband protagonist.
Oh, the 90s. You were the 90s. You were so interesting.
I don't know. Some things are just leave it in the 90s.
Some things might be better left in 1990. Weird.
And again, I don't. It's not like I disliked Orphen, but I also wasn't super about it. And maybe people who loved Orphen and had it near and dear to their heart, maybe it's what they got them into anime. Maybe they're super hyped about it, in which case I'm really happy for you, because this readaptation is for you.
Yeah, I totally bounced off of it.
Yeah, it's not for me. I'm unfortunately not very nostalgic for Orphan specifically. If they had chosen another series, maybe, but even then, I'm not a huge fan of what they did to the art style.
What's interesting is that, like, I actually, like, decently liked the manga when I was in, like, middle school.
Right.
I remember, like, reading it in the library.
Right.
But, I don't know, it just doesn't... The anime does not capture me. The anime.
Yeah. The anime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. I think of all the 90s, like, kind of 2000s remakes and sequels that are coming out nowadays. Like, God knows Full Metal Panic got a fucking, like, new season, quite recently, which is just fucking mind-blowing to me. Like, I think that's so funny. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like whatever, you know?
Yeah, it's fine. I guess if
it's
you're
okay.
If you really liked Orphan back in the day, then you might be super hyped, in which case, again, I'm happy for you, but if you're not a huge fan of Orphan, then this might not capture you.
Yeah, what can I say? It's just not my particular cup of tea.
Yeah. It's fine.
Okay. Let's talk about something that I think is pretty neat. Somali and the Forest Spirit.
I love this anime.
I knew you would. So, Somali and the Forest Spirit is about a fantasy world where a bunch of like quote unquote monster people live, and it's just like a fantasy world, except all of the humans have basically been killed and eaten by the monsters because, to be fair, the humans did try to invade because racism first, and then they lost because they suck. But you have a human child who was ostensibly some kind of like slave that had escaped or something, who was adopted by a golem nearing the end of their life. And basically they just want to find this child's parents if they're still alive, or at the very least, like, I think other humans to sort of raise this child, because, you know, right. I have read the manga for this. I read an all right amount of it, like I think like 20 or so chapters. And overall, my impressions of it are very, very positive. I think that the thing about Somali and the Forest Spirit is that it captures a lot of what I want from isekai shows that I never get from isekai shows. You know, it's like isekai shows are always kind of concerned with the actions of the protagonist and the progression of the protagonist from overpowered to super overpowered, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're like really more interested in what does the protagonist, someone from modern Japan, have to give to this fantasy world, a medieval backward society that isn't as advanced. And it throws that conceit out the window. It's not an isekai show, mind you, like it's just a straight fantasy show. But the world building in it is a lot stronger than like really a lot of fantasy. You know what it feels like? It feels very Made in Abyss in a certain respect. It's definitely a lot more lighthearted than Made in Abyss. Like
the world feels like Made in Abyss in how kind of like it's almost. I mean, it literally is magical, but also it's gorgeous, and there's a certain atmosphere that you just sink into immediately.
Yeah, and it is. It's the level of like you get to experience the unique world and culture of a fantasy world, right? Which is weirdly not what we get a lot of the times, even though that's like I would argue what made, you know, stuff like Lord of the Rings really popular. Was all of the like Silmarillion stuff where like, you know, J.R.R. Tolkien was just like, all right, this is like hobbits just eat food all the time and they have an entire culture around eating a bunch of food and sleeping and smoking weed, which is like cool. And shows like Michiko and Hachin kind of also have this vibe to it. They're basically like tiny hobbits, right? Like,
Yeah.
to be fair. But it has a very similar vibe to it, where it's like this world is really, really well thought out, and it has a lot of character to it. It's not just like a very like generic fantasy world. You know, it has some like, it has some teeth to it, right? Like, the whole conceit about the golems, and like what the golems are supposed to be like, and how they're like rare, and they like almost never leave their forests. The conceit of like, well, this is a world where like there aren't that many humans, at least in the area that we're exploring. I know later, I think we encounter like a witch hut or something. It's either witches or mermaids, and I don't remember which one. I just know it's really good. And obviously, like, you know, we watched like episode 2. It's about like the Oni, and we kind of get like a little bit of insight into like what that's like. And overall, like, it just feels very, you know, in a way wholesome, in a way a little sad because of the conceit of the show. Like, the golem is in his like last year or so of being alive. So you know that it is and this is what I like about it, is that the show has a very clear sense of purpose and time. So you have like what the journey is going to be. You have an end point to the journey inevitably. It is a journey to say goodbye, and you know that from the beginning. And on top of that, it kind of all of that comes together to make sure that what you're enjoying is the journey, and not like what is at the end of it, right? Like, obviously you can be curious about what is at the end of it, but you know what's at the end of it is inevitably the death of this golem. And so it makes you cherish the journey more. It's like, it's like weirdly life affirming in a way. Like, there's a lot of like, well, like, you know, death is what gives life meaning. Like, it's more about the journey than the destination, that kind of stuff. But because it has that singular kind of like thematic focus to it, on top of this singular relationship focus between a child and a parent, essentially, learning how to navigate being a child and a parent when that's not something that comes naturally to you. On top of a like well thought out and fleshed out fantasy world, it has this really awe-inspiring sense of purpose and sense of like grounded sort of aesthetic and identity that is really missing in a lot of shows. I think it's very well put together.
Yeah, I like that, despite the obviously the sad premise, or the sad aspect that, you know, will happen later on down the road. It treats it in such a way that it's not gonna, you know, that's not gonna be like just a big old fat tragedy, try and make you cry as much as you humanly can. It's about the relationship between these two characters, and how sweet that is, and how they're kind of learning from each other a lot, and you kind of want to see how their character arcs flesh out and grow based on how much they interact with each other on this journey.
Yeah.
So that's really nice. And I mentioned this while we were watching it too, that like while they were walking through the town, I was like, I feel like I'm in an MMO, but better. You know, like, like what I want out of an MMO is what this world feels like.
Yeah, for sure. There's like definitely a level of it. It's very, it's like, it's super colorful. And, you know, this is part of the world building where like the character designs are very like kind of, some of them are very outlandish and interesting to look at. It's very like, it's not just like there are orcs and dwarves and humans and elves and they all look vaguely like people but with like slightly different features. It's like, oh, this is like an anteater person and this is a frog person. This is like really the closest that we get to like you know, people that look like humans are the Oni so far in the like 2 episodes that we watched, and even they have like some kind of like quirks about them that make them definitely look not like humans. And I think like a lot of the strength of it is that even though you can tell that the animation, I would say, doesn't have like a ton of character to it.
The character animation isn't very great. It's not great.
It's adequate, I would say.
Yeah.
But there's like really no like personality or uniqueness behind it. But at the same time, it doesn't necessarily need to, because everything else about it does feel like kind of well put together. It feels like a very competently put together show.
I mean, whatever work they didn't put into the character animation, they put 110% into the environment. And I'm all right with that, because the environments, the way that they're drawn, also have they have that nice fantasy aspect to it, but it's like modern. It's a modern style, like it. I'm not really sure how to describe it, but it's an art style that is really popular, like right now. If you ever go on art sites a lot, like I do.
Yeah, no, the backgrounds are very, very strong. It looks like it kind of looks actually more like concept art than like actual art.
Yes,
in a way.
Agreed. Yes.
There's like you know what it is? It's because there's a like kind of cluttered sense to it, which really makes it feel like a lived-in space. Mm-hmm. Like it's not just like, oh, this is like a house in the abstract. It's like this is a house and like there's laundry hanging up. You can tell someone lives here.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of stuff gets a lot of it doesn't get a lot of attention, I feel like, because a lot of the focus tends to be on character animation. It tends to be on, stuff like writing and story. And we don't get as much of the visual storytelling of like passive visual storytelling that has really nothing to do with like the main story, but exists to flesh out the world itself and make it feel like a lived-in place.
Right.
Like the thing about I mean, like really like a lot of shows is, when I think about like what does the environment look like, they're very empty and very plain, and they're very functional, right?
Like if you think about other isekai shows that we've watched, like the Slime one or Shield Hero, whatever, like the environments are so plain, or they're unremarkable, and this anime is basically carried by them because
you know what,
they're so full.
There has been a wave of manga in the last couple of years, I've actually noticed, that is really focused on these kind of I like almost like storybook, like these Western like fairy tale storybook like illustrations.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying it's a very current art style.
Yeah. It's this Michiko and Hachin. There is a Witch Hat Atelier is definitely like this. I'm waiting. It is only a matter of time until Witch Hat Atelier gets an anime. I like swear it. Witch Hat Atelier is actually really, really good. It is, despite having a very similar premise to Little Witch Academia, quite different. And there's a couple of manga I think by the same person who does Witch Hat Atelier. Maybe, or maybe it was someone else. But yeah, there's been a lot of that kind of stuff that I think is now beginning to like maybe come into the spotlight. Because like people do appreciate like really dense backgrounds. It's just very difficult to turn it into anime, which is I think for sure. Which is I think why the character animation isn't like it's adequate in Somali.
Yeah,
and
they
I think
had to make a sacrifice somewhere.
Right, but I think it works pretty well to the ends of the story, because it's not like the character animations are necessarily what we're watching for. Like one of the characters is literally a robot, like
voiced by Daisuke Ono.
Okay, so we haven't mentioned that, but the best part about this anime by far is that the golem is voiced by Daisuke Ono. And he sounds like Daisuke Ono too when he's in there, because you're like, is that Jotaro?
Is that Sebastian?
is that Jotaro Kujo? Like, there's definitely moments where I'm like, wow, this really sounds like Daisuke Ono.
Yeah. Like, at first you're like, I'm uncertain because his voice sounds so flat, and then certain inflections you're like, oh, there it is.
Yeah. Wooda! Yeah. Somali the Forest Spirit. It's whimsical. It's good. It has a very, like, powerful emotional core to it that I think will resonate with a lot of people. I definitely recommend watching that if you're interested in fantasy anime, period.
Yeah, I 100,000% recommend it if you're into found family stuff.
Also, just like watch and read Michiko and Hachin. Like, come on.
If you're not into like almost pastoral kind of
it's like
storytelling,
really,
then don't come near this anime because that's all this is.
It is very pastoral, but I'm a sucker for pastoral fantasy.
Yeah.
Explicitly, just anyway. Next, let's talk about Natsunagu. It's like a little like web anime. It's very cute. It is about somebody who wants to find her online game friend after the game server shuts down.
Yeah,
which is cute.
It's cute, and the art style is really cute. And
it looks
nice
like a KyoAni show that has gone through the it looks like a KyoAni show that has gone through the wash and then like been hung up to dry and like has been like sun bleached. Like it's like pastel KyoAni.
Yeah, agreed.
Like all the colors are very flat, but they're very pleasing to look at. Like everything looks really good, even though like the animation is clearly like very few frames.
Yes.
It is like the bare minimum amount of frames they could get away with to call it an animation. But it's also like a little like web show, right? And it's cute. Like it really is cute. And I have no idea where you're supposed to watch this legally. But it's good and you should track it down through your own means, preferably legally if you can. But it do be like that sometimes. Yeah, I don't know. Overall, it's just kind of a nothing show, but it's like so cute and calm and heel soothing. Like
heel soothing.
Yeah, it soothes my heels. Like it's just good. It just is good.
It's a nice light watch if that's what you want out of an anime. Nothing super freaking plot heavy, action, whatever. This one is nice. It's a nice chill anime.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing about it is like each episode is like 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's super short.
Yeah. Speaking of short forms, they have the Room Camp, which is the like little tiny spin-off short form version of Yuru Camp, and that's also really good. So
yes, it's very cute. If you have listened to us talk about U-Camp before, then you know that how much we freaking love that series.
We've super gushed about it. If you found, like honestly, like it is perfectly suited to a short form format as well. It's really nice that we just get these like little tiny clips.
Little bite-sized amounts of camping.
It will tide me over until we get another season. So.
Please.
Absolutely. Like if you've heard us kind of like wax poetic about it, like we love it. And like there you go. Okay, are you ready to talk about the big one?
Wait, we didn't talk about this one.
Oh, we didn't. I completely skipped over that. Wow, you're right. For some reason my mind just went blank. Okay. So next, we should talk about Spectre, or I think it's like Kyokosuiri or something. I don't remember what the Japanese name for it is. But actually, Spectre is quite cute of a title because it's like, she's like it's kind of like, you know what? It's a little bit like Gothic, but about yokai.
It's a blend of Gothic or Gothic
and Cardcaptor Sakura
and Cardcaptor Sakura and Black Butler. in which it's about this girl who is much older than she looks. She looks like a little moe blob girl who came right out of Cardcaptor Sakura.
She looks like Sakura.
She looks like she went to Sakura school and is going to Sakura school right now. And she's an older teenager who has awesome deduction skills or whatever. She has one glass eye, and she is able to interact with yokai or mythical creatures in Japan, and she's super into this dude who also ends up being like kind of part yokai or whatever. Like he also did the mermaid thing where he ate part of a mermaid, and now he has powers. So I don't know how I feel about this anime.
I know you're very conflicted about it.
I'm conflicted because it's fine, it's not bad, but I just can't help but see all the influences on it, and I compared it to Fire Force in that way because I just look at it and I see all the series that it is made up of rather than the actual whole, and it's really distracting for me.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a bad anime because it is like interesting. They have some interesting mysteries, and the characters are fine. The character designs are fine. The conceit is fine. I just I don't know.
I am very interested in watching more of it for a very specific reason. I've read some of the manga, and I don't remember how much I ended up reading.
Okay.
But I'm interested in it specifically because it has the vibe that I get from the first couple episodes is it is a lot of the characters talking to each other in which might otherwise be kind of uninteresting, but actually what I realized is there might be something about the way that the story or the way that the anime depicts storytelling as a thing. The conceit is that essentially she when she was like 12, she disappeared for a couple days because the tiny yokai who are not very smart banded together and were like, become our goddess of wisdom, and she was like, okay, and so they took her leg and her eye, and subsequently she became like, able to interact with the yokai and has essentially become like the Sherlock Holmes of yokai to solve yokai problems. And I think the conceit is interesting. I think you're right though that it wears its influence on its sleeve, and it's a little bit all over the place, especially in the first couple episodes. Because you kind of have to piece things together for yourself before they tell you what's happening, which can be a little bit jarring and a little bit frustrating because it just kind of jumps all over the place. It feels like there's not a ton of guidance for you as a viewer, and in a different way than I think with a show like Boogie Pop that's sort of intentionally like that. I think that like just the general direction of it is unclear to begin with. I think it has a premise, but it doesn't know where to go with that premise until it looks like a couple of chapters in. And I think that really, honestly, like that's something that probably should have been tightened up in the anime, but it has basically made it into the anime unscathed. Because otherwise, the show actually looks really good. The animation is really good. Is very good. The art style is kind of a little interesting. I'm more interested in like a very specific aspect of this show. In general, I think the writing could be stronger, to be honest. Like it's a slow show for sure.
Oh god, yeah, it's so slow, and I'm fine with a slower paced story, but there is so much talking, like you mentioned, that I'm it's not that it's difficult to keep up with, but I wish there was a lot more showing than telling, because they talk so much, and I do agree that the beginning is a little bit confusing, because at first you're kind of like, is this like a romance? Because it's all about like her having a crush on this guy, but he already has a girlfriend, and it's kind of comedic in that way, in the sense of like, in the way that they handle it. And then it turns into, oh, it's about kappas. Oh, wait, no, it's about yokai in general. And then the whole second episode is about her trying to solve this mystery for this very specific snake. And then they talk forever. So I don't know how much I like that. Even if it is like a nice mystery and it is a decent story, I wish that they would show more than tell. In that sense.
I think the presentation of it for sure is leaves something to be desired.
Yeah, because I think it could be something super interesting if they, I don't know, maybe it gets better later on.
Okay, hold on. I suddenly understand everything about this show.
Okay.
The real problem with this show is that we keep trying to adapt stuff that's not meant for anime, and this is a novel.
Oh.
Like, that makes so much more sense.
I see. Okay, I understand now.
It is a novel that was adapted into a manga, and I think it serves pretty decently as a manga, because sure, you can just have pictures and a lot of characters talking to each other, bubbles. It doesn't have to be that interesting. But as soon as you move it into anime, that becomes a lot more complicated, because essentially you're just being asked to really just juggle a lot of information in a visual auditory medium.
Yeah, like in a novel, you have liberties in which you can kind of meander a bit, so you can be like, oh, she has a crush on this dude. Oh no, it's about demons instead, or whatever. Like, that's fine.
So the problem is that in a novel and in manga, you can play with time in a different way than you can play with it in an anime.
Yes.
And as a result of that, when you're reading the novel, the kind of expansive conversations and the sort of storytelling aspect of it, and the kind of mystery building of it is very, very different from when you do it in an anime. Yeah,
and because this snake episode or whatever is literally her just talking to the snake the entire episode, it drives me wild, because in a novel, I understand they would be talking, and then they would be describing the events, and then they would describe it in such a way that you feel like you're there watching it. And yet in the anime, it feels so stationary, even though they are animating some of the things that they're talking about, right? Like, oh, the woman goes here and does this, or oh, she has a relationship with this dude. It feels super stationary, and it doesn't feel like it's moving the story at all. And I don't know. I wish it was a better adaptation. Maybe it'll get better.
I mean, that's very true.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not super into it, but I would be a little interested in seeing where it goes after this. I'm just really uncertain about the whole thing, because it hasn't captured me in too many ways yet.
That's very fair. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think it is all right. Like, maybe it's even good. Technically, it is very proficient.
Technically, it's proficient, yes.
I do think that the pacing of the anime is all over the place.
Yeah.
It's a hard watch to get to the first couple episodes, at least.
Yeah.
It, I think, becomes a little bit more interesting after the end. Actually, this is why I say that I think that there is an amount of what's it called? Like, there is an amount of confusion that's happening in the first couple chapters, because they just time skip 2 years after like the first arc, and it's not an arc either. It's like,
that's right.
It's like you have the introduction to the characters, and then like they talk about like, oh, I ate the flesh of a yoke. And like you have the introduction episode, and then you have the next 2 episodes about the like snake, and then they skip 2 years, and it's suddenly about, you know, Steel Beam Nanase, which is, I think, much more interesting. It's much more dynamic.
That does seem more interesting, yes.
But it's so unfocused in the first like 3 episodes that it is, I don't know. It's kind of a hard sell for me. Like I don't know how much I would want to sell this to another human being. Like I don't even know who I would really say like, oh, you should watch this. Like the mystery aspect of it is all right. The character designs are okay.
Yeah.
I like that they wear different outfits. That's pretty cool.
Like Card Captor Sakura.
Right, like the writing of it is all right.
Yeah.
Just overall, like maybe just read the manga, honestly. Oh, I will say the opening is banging.
I do like the opening. If you think that the pacing of the manga is better handled because it's in a manga format, then yeah, I would say it's interesting enough to check out the manga.
I think so.
Yeah.
It has been a couple of years since I have read the manga, so take my advice with a grain of salt. But I feel like the medium of it is just it handles it a little bit better, or at the very least, it was less offensive to me, because anime is has such a controlled sense of like temporality. It's very different from when you read manga. Like stuff that feels fast in manga can be slow in anime, which is what the first like arc of Black Clover was basically.
Oh god.
Right, like that's the reason we bounced off of it so hard. I mean that end though, like but yeah, for sure, this is like one of the shows more so than any other that it feels that way to me, where like I would rather be reading like the manga of it.
Right, which is interesting because there are some series that handle that amount of dialogue or pacing better, like we mentioned Kaguya-sama, which has it's all just the characters talking at each other in the student council room.
Right,
and
but
yet
it's
they
super
managed to
interesting.
make it super entertaining.
Yeah, because they use these really over-the-top dramatic... Like, I think it was adapted very, very well. Because the aspect of it where they're kind of getting into each other's minds is present in the manga. You know, it's very entertaining. But in the anime, it's just like they cranked that up to 11.
Yeah, and I think... And if you're going to go for an anime adaptation, you have to know what to emphasize and what to downplay. And it... feels like a one-on-one adaptation for this series might not have done it the best. Like there are some series where it's like one-on-one or go home, you know, you don't touch it. Just adapt it as it is, and all of the author intent, whatever, it's great. But sometimes an adaptation has to make certain choices that will make it a little more palatable for the new media that it's being adapted towards. And this doesn't feel like it did it too many favors.
One of the biggest problems with this, though, is that there is a density of information that is difficult to handle when it's being spoken at you. Like, if someone tells you if someone says a bunch of numbers at you and you have to write them down, like, it's very, very difficult. Whereas it is a lot easier if you have access to the text and you can just reread it if you're confused about something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's, I don't know. Like, I would just watch it and make your own decision about it. Like, maybe you'll like it more than I did. Maybe you'll like it more than Renu did. Like, I think I liked it more than Renu did. But I think
you liked it more than I did too. But I'm also like really critical of this kind of stuff. So,
yeah, and plus, like, I'm interested in one aspect of it. And it'd be interesting to see if it goes anywhere with that idea.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the big one.
So next we have to talk about Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken.
Keep your hands off Eizouken.
Holy cannoli. This anime.
I told you you'd like it.
Yeah, no, you were 100% correct, because as an animator, you cannot help but feel this anime on a visceral level. And even if you're just like an artist, in terms like you're not making animations, but you make illustrations, whatever. Like, as an artist, as a creative person, you feel this anime because it's about these 3 girls who are trying to make an anime, and they're in high school, and it's amazing. Oh my god, it's so great. Like, just the earnestness that this anime portrays in how these girls try to go about something that feels impossible or feels too large for them, but they just want to get started, is so true. Like, sometimes if you have a big dream, you just have to get started somewhere. And these girls have big dreams of becoming, well, at least 2 of them have big dreams about becoming professional animators. One is a concept artist, one is into character animation, and then the 3rd girl is just a ball buster, and she's here to like help support them whatever they want to do. She can't draw, but she will freaking manage the frick out of them and get stuff done and use her connections wisely. So all artists need someone like that. And
fair enough.
I fell in love with this instantly, and it's so well animated too.
Yes. So, Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken is based on a Japanese manga series written and illustrated by Sumito Owara. But importantly, and I don't mean to say that that's not important, because it is important. But of relevance to me personally, and the reason that I fought so hard to watch this, and I pushed this so hard, is because it is directed by my boy Masaki Yuasa.
Chaboy.
Chaboy. And I think that was probably a pretty good choice. Like, it's very well put together. So Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken is essentially about, like, you know, as Renu mentioned, these girls attempting to make an anime like movie. And they have to basically fight every inch of the way for it. They have to make sure that they're allowed to have a club. They have to get the club room in working condition because it sucks. They have to fight the budgeting committee to get enough money to, like, do anything. So, you know, overall, like, it is a very, like, grounded series in terms of where it is, it has gotten into very, like, specific and, like, real situations that, like, animators run into.
Oh god, it's so real.
Like, every moment of it is just kind of packed full of, like, oh, yeah, that is a logistical problem, and you can't just anime that away. Like, it has, and like, you're right when you say that it has this, like, very sincere honesty to it. You know, it doesn't make qualms about the amount of work and labor that goes into animation, and the amount of appreciation that you will get for that, which is not proportional, let's say. But I think it does expound upon, like, the reasons why people are still so passionate about it, because, you know, anime is an industry of passion. People don't go into anime for, and obviously this is something that is abused for you know, cheap labor. Essentially, it's the same as the video games industry. Like, lots of crunch, very little personal time, a lot of really bad management of work-life boundary, because people are passionate about the work, and you know, pretty bad pay and pretty bad, like, all of those things are very real concerns to have. Like, the Japanese animation industry is brutal. It's pretty, you know, it would be nice if there were more protections for those workers, just like for video game people. But
yeah,
you know, this show is honest about the amount of work it takes, and I don't think it glamorizes it, but it explains why. Like, it is basically the like most literal expression of why people love animation and making animation, right? You have somebody who like wants to essentially like explore and create and affect people, and like I think it's great that it essentially starts out with one of the main characters, Asakusa, essentially realizing like, oh, I'm both enraptured by this, and I've just realized that this is like made by another person. And I think that is a really important aspect of anime that we don't like necessarily talk about as often, is that all of the anime that we watch is made by people, and they had to like put the work in, and to do that. And I think the anime of Eizouken is really special in the fact that it very quite literally, like no joke, this is one of the most like enlightening anime to watch in terms of what it means to make an anime and the technicalities of it, because they get to show you literally on screen how that works, right? When they're in like, and to the credit of Eizouken, and I bet this is true for the manga as well, it is literally, a lot of it is just three girls talking to each other, and almost none of it is static.
Nope. And it is very, very animated.
Always very visually interesting to watch.
Yep.
Because when they're exploring ideas and when they're talking about something, they have this like watercolor, like sketchy environment that represents this imagination space that they're operating in. And it's very important because it allows them to do certain things, like when they say like, oh, well, this is not realistic, so we'll add this aspect. They just change it. Or when they say, we should add this because it's easier to animate, right? Then they add that. Or where they're like, oh, we'll just duplicate the explosion, and they add a bunch of explosions.
Yes.
Or like, very specifically when they're like, okay, if we add another frame to this animation, and they literally add another frame to the animation, like, it is the purest expression because you see it literally happening with your eyes, and it's at the same time as you're watching an anime, you're watching an anime about anime, and you're kind of getting a glimpse behind the scenes of the anime, even though it's the anime that's doing, it's like kind of like really meta in a certain sense. Where like,
it is very special. Yes.
Right. You're like, oh, like, I get it. The anime is telling me how anime is made, but also I'm like I'm watching the anime being made.
Yeah, like like it's one thing to just tell people about, hey, animation's difficult, but to show them, but also to show them in an entertaining way. Like this show hits all of that. Yeah. And I love that not only is it great about showing you the processes of what goes into making animation, but it's also really, really on point about how the personalities of people who create anime, like how like they can really conflict, and how ego is involved and how stubbornness is involved. Like there was this whole conflict in one of the episodes that I literally experienced with a coworker, like just that day, that same day, we just went through that, and I was like, oh my god, no.
Yeah.
So I can't recommend this anime more than, oh my god, it's so great. Like, if you just like anime in general, I think this anime is super approachable and easy to watch for you. I will say this, I love that both the it depicts both the like creative aspect of creating and the like, technical aspect of it, but it captures the sense of like that like kind of imaginary play space that you engage in. It's kind of like, when you play D&D and you like imagine a space together, or when you're a kid and you're like, oh, this is like my Buster sword, and like we're fighting the evil mech squadron.
But at the same time, the anime itself has a very interesting setting where like the school is not just a school. It's like a school with a lot of students, and it's on this weird, cool, like barge island.
Yeah.
Like the vistas of the school themselves are very interesting to look at.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, this will resonate really hard with anybody who really engages in that kind of creative work, and they understand the like work behind it. And even if you're just interested in that, you know, getting a glimpse behind the curtain there is also very interesting. And I will say this, like, I don't think this show is necessarily for everyone. I've seen a lot of people bounce off of it, like more than a couple people bounce off of this show, because the first couple episodes can be a little bit repetitive, because they follow essentially the same format. And if it's not something that like you're that interested in necessarily, like it might not capture you, right? Like there are many aspects of it, I think, that, you know, while it is very well put together, very well paced, very real, they don't necessarily resonate with every person, right?
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, like I've seen a lot of people who just can't really get into it, and I think that's a very fair criticism, especially because of how repetitive the first couple episodes are.
Yeah, I mean, not everyone is into like Bakuman, for example, and that's a really wonderful look into how to freaking make a manga.
Yeah, well, I think like like Eizouken is so literal that it is it's not slice of life, but it's pretty mundane, right? And as much as they try to keep that mundanity exciting, you have to be in the headspace where you're willing to accept that, which, you know, you might not necessarily be, right? Like, you have to be willing to accept the creative fantasies of the characters who are created by someone. Like it's like a lot of abstraction. It's a lot of like you have to suspend a lot of disbelief basically to get into it, I think, is the case, even though that's kind of butting up against how realistic the show is in terms of the technical aspects of animation.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's not necessarily telling you a straightforward narrative in terms of like, this is about Somali meeting a golem and they go on an adventure together. It's about these girls trying to make a thing and the ins and outs of that process, and it's half educational, half like, oh, we want to see if these girls can do it kind of thing. So I can see why people would bounce off of that, especially if this isn't even their genre of anime that they would want to watch. Like, some people just want to watch mecha anime, and that's fine. These girls try to make a mech drawing, and it's somewhat successful, kind of. But yeah, no, it's not necessarily for everyone, but I think it is still easy to watch in terms of like, there's not too many barriers of entry to watching it. Like, you can watch an episode and see if you like it, and if you don't like it, then that's fine. You can move on.
Yeah, I think so too. And the fact that, like, the fact of the matter is, I think, like, it is asking quite a lot, but I would say that, like, episode 4 is really where, like, things get really, really good.
Yes, it does.
Because it's formatted differently. It has, you know, it's like the result of all the work that you've gone through.
Yes.
And the way that it kind of is willing to, like, essentially blend together the, like, fictional conceit of the show Eizouken and the fictional conceit of, like I think what I like about it is that it's just willing to, like, be literal, right? Like, and I mean that in the sense that like the scene where they're watching the finished movie, where like the stuff is like bleeding into the real world, and that just exists. Like, you know, it's not, but at the same time, it like kind of doesn't matter that it's not actually happening.
Yeah.
Right. Because it captures the feeling of what it's like to be immersed in that space. And I really, really enjoyed that. I thought that was a very, very good way of depicting it. Yeah. And honestly, like, if you're iffy on Eizouken, I would watch until until the end of episode 4 and see how you feel about it from there. You know, it's okay if you don't like it. I obviously think it's great because, you know, it resonates with like the creative work that I do. And I also love the fact that it is by my favorite director, and I like the fact that it's like the character designs are really cool. Actually, very big kudos to the original mangaka. I like that the characters are all high school girls, but they look nothing alike.
I love it.
Like you got Gremlin, somebody who is thought to be conventionally attractive, and then Kanamori, who is just big, like she's just tall. Like they're all so unique. They're all animated in a way that their personalities like really, really like shine through. Yeah. Like yeah, every aspect of the characterization is just done spectacularly. Like they're so unique. They have such personality to them. Every aspect of them is just really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Highly recommend it if you want to watch an anime about anime.
Yeah, this is definitely my like pick of the season.
Yeah, same.
Like I can say that right now. It's pretty pretty clear that this is my pick of the season.
Yep. Yeah. So next, just to address it, because yes, there is a new season of Haikyuu.
Wow.
I have not watched it yet because I want to not wait week to week. I just want to binge it all at the end, so that's what I'll be doing. I'm gonna wait until then.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe that is the end of the anime that we have watched.
Woo.
Cool. Do you wanna let us know what you're up to, or where we can find you?
I can be found at twitch.tv/Swandron, Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, all at Swandron. You can find me on Instagram at swan.drawn. I will be continuing my Friday streams over on Twitch. I have been dabbling between trying to do art and stay productive, or just letting my brain melt into games. I'm still playing Monster Hunter World, and that's fun.
Nice.
Yeah. And yeah, that's it, man.
All right, cool.
What about you?
I will be up to that's a good question. Probably not anything too exciting. I'm in like a weird lull period where nothing feels real and everything is definitely fake. And I'm like, I don't know. There is a lot on my mind right now. A lot of which I cannot speak on. But my God, like at this rate, I'm gonna get a fucking ulcer.
Oh my God, Soupy.
I'm like way getting into my own head about certain things. Anyway. You can find me all the places at Literal Soup. I don't know. I will be, I'm trying to like mentally think about when this comes out and then like when the next time we're gonna record is. I'm gonna take like some time to myself. I have completed my internship, for the moment, and, I'm parting ways with that and focusing on, getting a job, for realsies and being
a job that pays
money. But yeah, that's like more or less what I'm up to. Again, like nothing too exciting, honestly. Just like, like I'm sure that my life will start to pick up pretty soon. Like I'm sure that the stress will start to kind of wash over me as I like begin to panic because being an adult is hard. But until then, I'm in that weird calm before the storm phase of my life.
Right.
Yeah, it just be like that.
Okay.
It really do. But yeah. Honestly, I'm kind of just ready for a break. Like, I just need some time to myself. Because like I was basically working a job without having money to show for it. So not having to do that anymore is kind of nice. Today, the day we're recording was my last day.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah. It did mean that I like got home and I took like a 2-hour nap.
Right.
Which was fine because you were very gone.
I was very gone.
Yes.
So I'm glad that worked out.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, let's wrap up then. Our opening is by Scotchy Network and our ending is by Takuma Okada. The patrons that we're shouting out today are Frostfall, Cheru, Claire, Sean, Figure 4, and Magpie Mirror Test. Thanks a bunch, you guys.
Thank you so much.
You are no joke keeping me afloat. This is like more or less the only income that I get, which is nice because it literally just goes 100% back into the podcast. The podcast drains me for everything that I am worth.
Yeah.
But I do it because I love it and I love all of you. Oh, very exciting news. I mailed off the postcards the other day. So those should be arriving at some point, I think. Maybe they are there even by the time this episode comes out. I don't know.
That's exciting.
Do I remember exactly when I did it? I actually don't remember exactly when I did it.
Yeah. Let us know if you get them because that concerns me.
I did my best. I put them in the mailbox. Like, there's nothing more that I put the stamps on. I put them in the mailbox. Nothing more I can do about it. But they look really good. Renu sent me an extra one, and it's beautiful. Very lovely.
Glad it got there okay. Hopefully the rest of them will reach their destination.
Yeah. So that's very cool. That's very cool. Thanks a bunch.
Yeah. Hopefully I will be able to make another postcard sometime soon-ish in the near future. To send to our new patrons because this batch went to like our first patrons basically. Also, I feel like I had something else to say about the podcast, but I don't quite. I'll just announce this here, so that you don't have to wait like 2 weeks to find out. Maybe you like that, but like our next episode is about Carol and Tuesday because hot damn, it is time to talk about Carol and Tuesday. Jesus fucking Christ. We only put it off for like half a year, almost a full year. Yeah. Oh boy, no joke. I'm beginning to rethink this Netflix policy. Maybe we should just acquire anime. Uh-oh.
No, I'm not saying to pirate it. I'm just saying that maybe we should watch the anime as it's coming out. Mostly because, like, I don't know. Like, I initially have not, just because, like, I don't want to, like, advocate for piracy explicitly. What you do with the way that you consume content is your own purview. I have my own thoughts that I will not expound upon necessarily, but for the sake of the podcast, like, I don't necessarily like to watch outside of official channels because I think it like it's important for the industry that some numbers are being routed through official channels. But at the same time, like sometimes it's hard to watch anime. Like I'll just say that. Sometimes it's hard to watch anime. So our policy generally has not been to do that, basically. But at the same time, that kind of sucks, right? Like I kind of don't like that it's like punishing an anime just for having been licensed by Netflix.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's punishing an anime viewer for not pirating and trying to watch through,
like, I will not endorse piracy. I will say the increasing granularity of subscription-based services is somewhat distressing to me.
It is so freaking ridiculous. How many subscriptions are our lives run by now?
Oh, way too many.
I hate this model.
Yeah, welcome to new cable. It'd be like that. Honestly, we could have an entire episode about internet like video content.
God.
Like it's just like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we might start talking about it at the very least. Like we obviously won't tell you how we're getting the anime. I will refuse to comment if you ask. Just for safety reasons. And because of personal reasons. But yeah, there you go. I'm like the worst. Like if I went to a court case right now, I would be indicted to fuck. It would be
we're doing the best we can. There's a reason why we
me.
Waited on Carol and Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Carol and Tuesday is also I've just finished it and it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And I would say it is worth dedicating an episode to. I have some thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts.
We gotta talk about it. So we'll talk about that next week. Now that it's out of Netflix jail, and
hooray!
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.